Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Kyle Stout. We're going to talk about marketing and emails. Emails. We all know that you're supposed to have a big email list and you're supposed to be emailing all of those warm and sometimes not so warm prospects. And how many people are just missing the mark in that area of their business? Let's talk about how people can step up their game. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you for having me.
Email marketing. So some people have a pretty strong aversion to it. We go on somebody's website and sometimes you get the pop-up that just will not go away. Sign into my email marketing list. the really unappealing email opt-in box, like sign up for our newsletter, and everybody's like, who the hell is going to do that? Why would I do that? So you can spam me? No, thank you. Right. But then there's those emails that we just love getting. Like, we've got our people and it's great. It's a good email. Yeah. It's selling us stuff and it's stuff that we want. We respect them. And it keeps us engaged, and it's easy to forget about people when you're not getting their emails. So let's talk a little bit about your business first, so we have some context. And then I want to get into this whole subject because this is not something that we've specifically talked about on our show.
Okay, awesome. So I work primarily with direct-to-consumer brands that are selling products online. So before I started my email marketing agency, I was a freelance copywriter, and I worked with a wide variety of businesses, services, info products, coaches, you name it. So I have experience with email with all of them. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people try to separate the strategies out, but I think a lot of it comes down to a lot of it is psychology and just understanding your ideal customers and, trying to be helpful, entertaining, giving them the right information when you would think they would need it based on when they've signed up or where they are in your funnel. All of that really applies to all the businesses. And I will say one advantage to working with product-based businesses is that while in general the average person would say that they don't like to get emails, people do love to shop. And so a lot of the brands we work with, they have their diehard loyal people who they just love getting the emails because they love whenever they find out about a new product or a new sale or whatever. So I think a lot of business owners would be surprised at how many people there are out there, how many customers there are out there that actually, believe it or not, enjoy getting marketing emails.
You and I talked just a tiny little bit about this before we hit the record button. I want to dive right into it. There are so many people who have these fear-based limiting beliefs around sending emails. They're afraid that they're going to piss people off, that people don't want to hear from them, that they don't have anything worth saying often enough to warrant sending more frequent emails. And I will admit it. In fact, I've been in this business now for over a decade. I have literally just dumped email lists because they went pretty much stale because I just was not utilizing it. I've seen that pattern in myself over the years. So I know that these limiting beliefs they're insidious. They're in there, right? Especially for our people pleasers, people who want approval, people who don't want to make anybody mad, people who don't want to come across too salesy. I know you're seeing this in your business with your clients. Why don't you spend a little bit of time and speak to that from your perspective, being an expert in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the most common things I see. So a lot of times, if not, I'd say most of the time when someone hires us, they have not been doing either their email marketing has been slightly mismanaged or they just have been neglecting it. And usually it's the founder or one of the like directors of marketing or something who is responsible for it. And one of the most common things is that they don't know what to say because they themselves think that emails are annoying and they don't want to annoy their list. And so they have this attitude that if I send an email, I'm going to be annoying my list. And I always try to remind them that it's very difficult to write a good email if you sit down at the computer with that attitude in mind, because you're trying to find a way to not be annoying instead of shifting how you think and trying to just send emails that people would want to receive and not worry about if it's annoying or not. Because the truth is, you're not going to please everyone, like you alluded to. There's always going to be, no matter how much email is performing well for you and all your engagement metrics look great and you're generating consistent revenue, from a high level point of view, it looks like, yeah, everything's going great. There's still going to be, every month there's going to be people who get so mad and they'll email you back and say, because you've emailed me so many times, I'll never buy from you and blah, blah, blah. And, that person likely wasn't going to buy in the first place. And again, you can't please everyone. You're better off trying to find the people that are better to serve, which are going to be your better customers who are actually open to buying. And really, to me, the attitude to have, it does require some work and some research, is to just really try to be more empathetic about the people on your list and really try to understand them. Like, what do they actually care about? Because if you're sending them, if the content in your emails, if it's not just a photo and a buy now button, if you actually are going to have some copy in there and you're going to talk to them about a particular topic that's related to your products or services, you need to focus it around them and what they care about and not be always talking about you and your brand and your products. And so if you haven't done it yet, that's where you really going back to kind of like the 101 marketing, buyer persona research or creating a customer avatar. There's different names for this, but you need to first figure out who are your ideal customers and what do they care about? What do they think? What are their pain points? What are their desires, their hopes, and their dreams? How familiar are they already with what you sell? Meaning, like, how much education do they need? Because again, you want to meet them where they are. And then when you create these emails, you just choose these different pain points or these different desires, and you craft the content of the email around one of those things at a time. And then you just tie in the product or service that you want to sell. You can just tie it in at the end. It doesn't have to be this long sales pitch. It's more of just addressing something they really care about, making the connection between that and what you sell. And that's a very non-salesy way to have a very persuasive sales pitch. And so that kind of eliminates this fear of being too salesy. It eliminates this fear of, only sending annoying emails. Because again, not everyone's going to like it, but if you're actually trying and you show that you care, people likely won't be, with the exception of the people who just can't be pleased, they're not going to be annoyed by it. It just might not be 100% relevant to them. And that's not the worst case scenario.
Those are great tips. So you shared the mindset shift that we need to make, which is in my world where I'm working directly with people on various different mindset challenges, I like to remind my clients, you cannot solve a problem when you're stuck in the problem. I always say, I speak about it from a metaphysical perspective about, if you're in the vibration of problem is what you're in, you're radiating it. That's where your mind is fixed. You're not a vibrational match, much less a mental, like you said, match to the solution. And that's how we are doing a lot of things in our life. The more stuck in our mindset we are, the more elusive that perfect solution is. But sometimes it is just that mindset shift. It's stop looking at it from the angle of, like in your example, being annoying, and what would it look like to be of value, to be sharing something that is interesting. And I love the tips that you shared about looking at what are their pain points, meet them where they're at, talk on a subject to sort of bring them up to speed. Where do they need a little bit more education on your product or your service? Be of value. And then it sort of naturally just ties into, well, here is a next step if this is the right fit for you. And you're right. We love to buy stuff. We just don't want to be sold stuff.
Mhm.
We want to feel like we're making the choice to buy whatever the thing is that sometimes we don't even really need, as long as we feel like it's our choice, not someone doing something to us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I totally agree. And I think that there's a lot more ways to do that than people think up front, because we get it. Typically, we'll get into a pattern of, we know our service really well. Maybe we've got like 5 go-to bullet points as far as the benefits that we would use to describe the product or service. And I find that, I mean, there are times to do that just to give them the overview, but I find it's better long term to focus on one benefit at a time and to drill down a little deeper into that benefit and then try talking about it from different angles. So, for example, if you were selling supplements for people who are, have different fitness goals, you already have a lot of people on your list who, whether they're going to be interested in maybe fat loss or building muscle, or maybe they run marathons, whatever it is, right? So you would pick one of those things, and now there's all kinds of smaller topics within that topic. So in the topic of fat loss, you could talk about how to shop for healthy groceries, how to plan out your diet, how to meal prep. There's so many different things where you're going to the main pain point, but you're drilling down on specific pain points within that broader pain point. So for someone who's listening and they think like, oh, I don't think I know enough pain points, then it's usually that's where you need to look at what the pain point is and say, okay, well, how would they solve this? And there's going to be multiple things. And then, okay, well, how would they do each of those things? And there might even be more steps within those. And that's how you can start to get more topics. And when you have once you've created this list of topics, that's another thing that's going to give you more confidence in yourself to do email marketing, because that fear of, I don't know what to say, or like, you might write a really good email and you're thinking, oh, how am I going to beat that one? But if you have this huge list of all these topics that feels like, oh, I'm never going to finish this, that's actually a good thing, because it means you'll never run out of interesting and valuable stuff to talk about.
So good. So good. So now I want to shift just a little bit. I want to talk about the value of building up your list and, of course, putting out great content to nurture that list. There are those sayings that, the money is in the list, and there's good reason for that. There are people who put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak, and their entire follower base is on one social media platform. And if something were to happen, and we know things happen,
Mm-hmm.
not such a good place to be. So now, while I'm an advocate for never putting all of your eggs in one basket, you want lots of big, abundant baskets. An email list is a really important basket to have. Can you educate those who maybe are not as versed in this whole realm of email marketing as to why it is so incredibly valuable to have that business asset?
Yeah, so beyond the fact that it's very cost effective, it's very profitable, the really what I always come back to as to why email marketing or your email list is one of the most valuable assets your business can have is because it's something that you can own and control, where you have direct access to communicate with your leads and customers, versus social media and all the other platforms, whether you have private groups or different things. If they're on platforms you don't own, it's not so much of, yes, there's the risk that your page could get banned or something could happen or whatever. And for a lot of people, that's not on their radar. Maybe they're just not in a category that's risky at all. But there's also changes to the algorithm. And we've seen this play out with every single social media platform ever. And it will continue to happen where, a lot of times they're giving out really high engagement to get users early on. And then it eventually moves to more of a pay to play system where you have to use their advertising product for even your own followers to see all of your content. And even beyond that, there's like all these little tricks you can do, but you're always having to find a way to kind of game the algorithm to stay on top of it. Whereas with your email list, you can get directly to their inbox, or if they also are subscribed to SMS, you can get directly to their phone, which is, I mean, they're both on your phone, but the SMS is a lot more direct and the notification is a lot harder to ignore for people. And so it's not just about, of course, you can do product launches and the big holiday sales and all that kind of stuff. And yes, you're going to, get to them faster and they might not have seen your content on social that day. It's also just being able to communicate to them. Like if you have important updates or anything that you need to share from the business or from the business owner to those people, you have a way to get that message to them, quickly and very effectively, which you don't always have the control to do on these other channels. Now, all that said, doesn't mean I'm of the belief you shouldn't do all those other things. They're all great. But I will say that even with our clients who have a really big following online, let's say they've got, over 1 million followers on Instagram or, fill in the blank platform. Some of them who have, really active, engaged, like super diehard fan people in their private Facebook group, things like that, right? These are situations where they're driving tons of sales, hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales every month from other channels besides email. And still the majority of the sales come from email every single month, like 30 to 60% of their sales are coming from email every month. So it's valuable. And as you grow and as you expand all these other channels, those things don't typically take away from email. They usually add to email because people who are engaged with you on all these other channels end up finding a way to get on your email list if you have some sort of free offer, or at least just by being a customer for the first time. And again, it kind of all comes back to where it's like, man, email just continues to be the most valuable thing.
That's it's a substantial number that you're talking about. It really brings things kind of, it hits home, because here we are and we're doing all of this stuff to grow our businesses, and in many cases it's simple little things that we overlook or we neglect or we don't take as seriously as we should, that really can add up over time. Now, I know that you're helping your clients with the content and all of that stuff. For those individuals who are listening, who they get it, they know its importance, but maybe they are the founder, and maybe they do have a little marketing team who posts for them on social and stuff like that. And maybe they even have some lead magnets, so people are opting into their email list, and maybe they're even sending out monthly or even weekly email. But perhaps their hurdle is a little bit about what we talked about before. It's, I don't know what to say. So is that something that you help then? Do you help actually come up with those creative angles and create copy for your clients?
Yes, so that's one thing people like about us, is that we provide all of the strategy and ideas. And if they have ideas, if they have, certain announcements they need to make or whatever, of course we always incorporate that. We try to bring their ideas to life, but we do provide all of those. And I will say, for someone who, if they're doing it themselves, maybe they're not in the market or not able to hire a team to do this for them yet, that what I always recommend to people is what I call the conversation starter campaign. So for any campaign that you're going to send out, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, if you can take this, you can use this as a template. And it's going to be kind of a combination of your nurturing and your selling, but you're not doing too much on either one. And this is a format that, until you really dial in your own strategy, you can pretty much rely on this indefinitely. And that's where I alluded to it earlier, but it's when you know all these different pain points and desires, all the topics that your people care about, your ideal customers, that each email, you just frame the message of the email around one of those topics, and in such a way that if you can do this, and most of the time you can, just you have to just kind of think about it for a second, in a way that if someone's not in the market to buy today, they at least got something valuable enough from the email that they would stay on your list and they would keep opening your emails in the future, so that when they are in the market, they're going to be there ready to buy. And then for the people who are in the market, it's an obvious choice to them. So again, it's like if you've educated on a very specific pain point, but you actually included some tips, like actionable tips of things they can do, then, and let's just say the product that you're selling helps them achieve that, then that's a no-brainer buy for them if that topic was the one that was highly relevant to them. And even in the case of like selling services, because I think products, a lot of times it's easy to find a lot of these topics. It just depends on what you're selling. With services, think about if you're selling like financial services, you can be the go-to person to interpret the financial news for them. So it just gets to where it's like they're relying on you to get an interesting original take on what's happening in the economy and what's happening with other things with financial news. And whenever they are in the need of your tax services or your tax consulting or whatever it is, they already trust you. You've become their go-to resource, so it's easy for them to sign up on like whenever they're in the market. But you haven't lost them. It wasn't like you were doing this nonstop sales pitch the whole time. You had something to say that was keeping them engaged. And so I would tell people, don't put so much pressure on yourself to like worry so much about I've got to only educate and nurture, or I can only sell, but I don't want to be too salesy. I like to do a combination of both. It's more of like try to provide value every time and have a logical connection between that to whatever you sell, but you don't have to do this over the top pitch. And if you show up on a regular basis, the message will eventually, you will have hit topics that they really cared about the most. You will have earned their trust and you have kept them engaged to where then it's just an easy decision to buy from you.
I love that. So good. Okay, we got to shift gears again because now I want to talk real briefly. We're getting at the end of time, but I do want to speak to you as the business owner about your own mindset journey. We're all working through our stuff. We all have our limiting beliefs that we're tripping over. Is there anything that you're willing to share with us about maybe a mindset challenge you encountered that you had to work through in order to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot. I'm sure there will be plenty more. There's stuff I'm working on now. When I first got introduced to the whole concept of just mindset and shifting your beliefs and shifting how you think and how that affects your reality, I was actually very lucky that I worked for an entrepreneur when I was 18. This guy was like a super go-getter. He had formed this DJ company, and I was one of the like doing weddings and other corporate events and stuff. And I was one of the new young DJs, and he required everyone who became an employee to, well, he didn't force it, but he pretty much required it to read the book Think and Grow Rich. And I had never heard of that, law of attraction or anything like that at the time. And that was the first time where it kind of opened my eye to, I had always believed that, but people they talked down on that stuff and made it seem like I was crazy for even thinking that. I was always a very positive thinker. And that was the first thing that opened my mind. And that was like a big light bulb moment of, okay, hold on. So the way we think can have a huge impact on us. And, over time, that led me to find other resources. And I would say there's a couple of things that were probably the biggest needle movers for me. One was a little bit less mindset. It was the book, The Power of Habit. So really learning how our brain synapses work and how patterns are formed and how to break habits and how to make habits. And that was what really led me to get a lot more disciplined about my daily routine, which for me personally has had a huge impact on my mindset. It's allowed me to be a lot more focused and be a lot clearer thinking by having specific routines in place and planning my day in a certain way where I can do the work that requires the most mental energy at the time when I have the best mental energy and I have the most clarity. Planning that around, it's been probably the biggest needle mover for me overall, just in life and not just in business. But for me, the biggest thing I struggled with was limiting beliefs about, like earning a lot of money. So I grew up, relatively poor. It was always a topic in our household of, we can't afford this. And there's always this feeling of we're not able to have that, or, we're not worthy of that. That was kind of like this thing that was imprinted in my mind. And even whenever I was, doing well academically, doing well with work or whatever, I always kind of like felt bad for charging more money. I always wanted to help clients, and like clients who had tiny budgets, and I'm basically scraping by trying to help all these people grow their businesses, and that was a big one where I worked with some coaches, and they had to like, really hammer into me, no, like set a rate, charge the rate, say no to people who can't pay it, and you will find people who can pay it. And that was a huge, huge change, because then that elevated to where I was working with way better clients who had a bigger budget, which gave me to work with, allowed me to deliver higher quality work, because now I have a team of people that do really high quality work, and they're not cheap. So, that it's not only have I benefited from it, but my clients have benefited from it. But it also meant I had to, say goodbye to a lot of those other clients to then go find these other people.
Money mindset stuff is something that we talk about a lot on this podcast. I found in all my years of working with business owners, some who are already doing well financially, every single person has some improvements that need to be made on their money mindset for sure. The statistics on people in business failing they're not favorable. And there are a lot of broke business owners. In fact, a lot of people listening might feel as though they fall into that category of being the broke business owner. And a lot of that is because our mindset is broken. We have been indoctrinated into all of these limiting beliefs that become part of our identity. And it requires a lot of diligent inner work to break through those things. But if you don't do the work, you stay stuck. And like you said, and like so many other guests have said, it's not uncommon that you're so focused on growing your business or achieving a certain financial milestone, you get there because of that focus, but because it's not aligned with your beliefs and your self-image, you lose it. And now you're back to ground zero again. It's so valuable to do this work. It's so important. And if you look around, if you listen to conversations people are having, there is no shortage of people who have very derogatory beliefs about business, about money, about success, about charging more, you name it, right? And we have to be willing to start to challenge all of those things, break through all of those things, or it will continue to be the cap on what we can achieve in our life and in our business. So thank you for sharing that. It's something that I think is so valuable for people to hear over and over and over again. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. Welcome to the club. Most of us had crappy upbringings. We've been indoctrinated into a society that demonizes really successful business owners. And if we want to create a successful life for ourselves, we've got to start to desensitize ourselves from all of that old programming.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I definitely think what you said about the identity is that was something that was crucial for me, is just like really having to change how I even identify myself, how I think about myself, how I perceive myself. And if I had what I wanted, who would I have to be to have that? And it's still something I have to remind myself. I still will fall back into those subconscious beliefs from the past, and have to like remind myself, no,
Yeah.
no, that's not who you are anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's a never ending thing, probably.
I would love to continue this conversation. I know there's a lot more we could go into on email marketing. There's a lot more we could go into on mindset, but because we are out of time, I want to make sure our listeners know how they can connect with you. So can you share your website, anywhere else you want to direct people to?
Yeah. So if you're interested in hiring us for email marketing, then you can go to elevateandscale.com. Otherwise, if you'd like just to get a resource to help you improve your own email marketing, I have a checklist that I've created that will help you send campaigns that generate more sales and engagement. And it will save you time with a step-by-step process that you can follow so you can grow your most cost-effective sales channel. And that's at winbeforeyousend.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle, for being with us today. Shared some gold, some awesome tips that people can start implementing immediately with their own emails. So thank you so much. I do appreciate you being with us and everything you shared today.
Thank you for having me.
And got to thank all of our listeners. You know we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.